do you know that methods can also actually call themselves as well within their bodies? So that is known as recursion. Let me just create a new class called recursion and let me just show that to you. So again, we have main. Now I'm just creating a new public static method, which is just called recursive. And now it is simply printing a message. Okay. What I want is that it should call itself. Now think if this is something which I did, that it calls itself and then from my main, I call that method. What will happen is that main will call the recursive method and then the recursive method will print out the message and then it will call itself and then it will print out message, call itself. This will keep on happening for infinite time and this is something which we already have seen in terms of loops, right? That it is definitely going to keep on executing that. In this case, what happens is that the methods are actually stacked one upon the other. So first the main method is executed, then on top of that recursive method, then on top of that another recursive method. It will keep on happening and then that stack will keep on growing and then one fine time the stack will overflow and that's how we call it stack overflow, right? So this is not something which we want. So we want to actually just call it on a particular condition. So let's say we are just printing the value of a, let a be 3, for example. So now I just want to call it if a is less than 3 or if a is greater than 0, as we already saw earlier, we should call recursive. And again, you know, it would keep on happening until I update a somewhere. So initially a is 3, not over here, but over here. Okay, initially a is 3, we send the value of a over here. It is going to take an int a. It is going to check if a is greater than 0 and then it's going to call recursive with a again. But now every time within this, I am decrementing the value of a. Now let's try to run this. When we run this, now can you see what is happening? We sent the value of 3, 3 becomes 2 over here, 2 gets printed over here. If a is greater than 0, yes, and then again recursive is called. And then again this decrement is happening and then we print 1, then again we print 0. As soon as a does not remain 0, this recursive is not called. As soon as if a does not remain greater than equal to 0, then this recursive is not called and that's how this recursive just returns and then we can simply go ahead with doing anything which we want to do over here. Okay, so this is how recursive methods work. So now if we want to see how recursion works, we initiate the recursive function, meaning we pass in the data, we check the base condition. If the base condition is actually true, then we simply return the data and terminate the function. If it is false, then we actually call that method again, do something with the data, and then we keep on doing that. So what is this base condition in our code? The base condition is actually a is less than 0, because if a is less than 0, then we do not do recursion. If it is greater than 0, then we do go ahead and do recursion. So now for recursion, we could have a recursive call anywhere, you know. Right now, a recursive call was at the end of the method body, but then we could have the recursive call in the beginning of the function. That would be head recursion. What we did was a tail recursion. We had the recursive call after we did all the other things. We could also have the recursive call anywhere within the method body. So that is body recursion. Now let's go ahead and understand the other data types which are non-primitive data types. For example, enum. So as you can see, I've created a class called enum, and in this I have actually created an enum called dates. What this does is that it actually creates a number of values associated with the days, and then based on that I can simply access that. So what I can use enum as, whenever I want to choose Monday, let's say for example, I can just do days.mon and this is what will be executed over here. Let's try to run this. So now as you can see, mon is displayed. And this is a simple enum, we just have days, and all these attributes are definitely associated with this enum only, and that's how we will refer to it. So that's a simple use case of an enum. The next data type is arrays. We already have seen arrays which are single dimension, meaning it is one row of same data type data. We could also have multi-dimensional arrays. So now, as I said, that arrays are a collection of items having the same data type which are stored in contiguous memory locations. The first element is stored at the smallest memory address. Okay. Now, as you can see over here, you have an array which starts with 0. 0 can point to a string, dog. 1 can point to another string. 2 can point to another string, let's say cat, and 3 can point to another string. This is a string array. These are all the indexes of all the elements which are stored within that array. Similarly, you can have a 2D array, meaning an array within an array. So the first element is actually having another array of 3 elements. The second element is having another array of 3 elements, and the third element is having another array of 3 elements. So that's how we would have a 2-dimensional array. So now here I'm creating a new class for arrays. And now in this, I'm creating a main block, and within this, we already saw how we can define an integer array 1, 2, 3, 4, however much we want. Or we could use the new keyword. We could create an int a, let's name it different, int b, with a new keyword. It would be new int bracket, and that's it. But here we have to actually specify the size, because here we understand that the size is 4 from 0 to 3. We really want to specify the size over here as well. So let's write 4, and the error will go away. Now we can simply access the different elements B0 or B1 or B2 or B3. What if we try to do B4? Let's try to print and try to run this. Essentially what I'm doing is that I'm actually trying to access something which is actually not present in B or not initialized in B. So when I run this, it gives an exception, array index out of bounds exception. Why? Because this index 4 is out of bounds for length 4. What you need is that your indexes are always between 0 and 3 for length 4 array. So you cannot use 4. So if I try to print B3, then we see 0. Why? Because here I've just initialized it. I have not assigned any other number, so it will be 0 only. If I do an A3, then if I print this, then this will be 4, because 3 is equal to 4. Now, if I try to actually create a 2-dimensional array, I can simply create it using 2 sets of square brackets. And now, if I want to initialize it, I will be having to use a number of curly braces. So in the first level of curly brace, I have my different rows, and then I have to create different columns using 3 different curly braces as well. So this is row number 0, this is row number 1, and this is row number 2. And what about the column number? It can be 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. This will be 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and this will again be 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. Now these are all double, so let me just change data type. Now, if we try to print C3, this again will cause an index out of bound, because we just have 0, 1, 2. Total 3. So we'll print C2, and now you can see we actually have this output, which is definitely not what I want. So we actually have to mention the element which I want to display. So if I take the first element, I will have from the third row, the first element will be 2.1. Or I can have the second element using 1, or I can have the third element using 2. This is how we actually access and initialize a 2-dimensional array. I could also have done it using the new keyword. So we can do something like this and just create new int, again 2 brackets, and then simply called d to 0. Again, we have to specify the size, but then even if we specify the number of rows, that's absolutely fine. If I print this will say null pointer exception. Why? Because the number of columns are not initialized. So let's initialize it to 2. And now when we print it, this will be 0 again, because we have not given any other value for this. So this is how we have single dimensional arrays and two dimensional arrays. Now we could have something known as jagged arrays, meaning that the columns within different rows are different. So here I have a two-dimensional array. The first row has 3 columns with elements 1, 2, and 3. The second row has only 2 columns with elements 4 and 5. So if I try to print E02, meaning I want to print 3, then I would definitely have 3 printed over here. But then if I just change it to E12, then let's see what happens. Again, there is going to be an array index out of bounds exception just because I tried to access something which is not present. So obviously I cannot display from the second row the third element because there is no third element. Can I do for the second element? If I try to print this, as you can see, 5 is printed, which is correct. So this is also one possibility of using two-dimensional arrays using Java as we really deem fit for our problem solving. Now let's talk something about strings. Just like